thank you. Thanks everyone for coming. As the day goes by, we have an opportunity to talk about some issues that are really important to the neighborhood. We know that vacant and abandoned buildings and vacant lots drag down neighborhoods, and I think it's important for us to have a comprehensive, straightforward conversation about how we can make some improvements to have an impact in people's lives. I'm not going to say much. You don't hear me? You don't hear me? Well, the mic doesn't work. It's supposed to be. The mic is for the camera. So I'll speak a little louder. So I just some quick housekeeping stuff. If you need translation, there's these units right in the back of the room, and there'll be simultaneous translation. Si necesita que le traduzcan, tenemos los audífonos que lo pueden utilizar para que le hablen en español. If you need to use the bathroom is right over here to the left or to your right in the back of the room if you need to utilize that. So yeah, I think that's it for me. Mayor Rivera?
Good evening, and thank you for being here. When we think about how we change the landscape in our community, we oftentimes need a lot of information to get to that point. In the past, it used to be the city used to do stuff, and then you could wake up next door to a property that the city let get zoned in a certain way, or you wake up and there'd be some work being done by the city, you wouldn't have any idea about it. But we've been blessed to have the ability to interact with the community more on these really important issues about how do we make the landscape of the city of Lawrence look better. But we wouldn't be able to do those things if we didn't have these great partners with the EPA. And when I first got here, people from the EPA were helping us out with the Merrimack paper site. They helped us out with some remediation there. They helped us out with some stuff on the water and sewer side. They've been really a big partner in helping us figure out a lot of problems in the city, which is kind of weird because they're environmental protection agency, and you don't really think that those things work in place. So, but for me, it's been really a pleasure to have those types of support because in Lawrence, as you know, there's a lot of need. We believe firmly that the answer to a lot of our questions lies within what you guys are doing, this conversation we're having, so that at the end of the day, what we have is something that we can all live with and enjoy. I think it's important for me to let you know that we have some friends from government here with us today. Our City Council President, Kendry Vasquez, is with us. Our City Councilor from District D, Giovanni Rodriguez. And we have a working City Council. They're part-time, so they have real jobs. So I'm sure that the other councilors either on their way or they send their best. The last thing I'll leave you with, and then we'll have Council President come up and say this a couple words, is what I like about these kinds of conversations is that it lets you know that we don't think we're the only ones that have the answers. In fact, getting the insight of what's going on in other places, getting the insight about what you want, that helps us even think about how to use these places in ways that we hadn't thought about before. But I worry that we have too many empty lots, too many abandoned buildings, too many burnt houses that kids have grown up by, and generations of kids have grown up by. They start going to this school when they're a little kid, and by the time they go to high school, these lots, these burnt houses, these empty places are still there. So if we can move a bunch of them off every year, I think that goes a long way of showing what is actually possible in the city of Lawrence. And I know Abel could talk to you a little bit more about what we've done so far, but there's no way that we've been done enough what we can do. But with your help, we can make a difference. Cool? All right. Now I'm going to have our City Council President, Kendry Vasquez, come up and say a couple words. Kendry?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It's very exciting to be here today. This is what real community involvement it's about. EPA, Arlington Community Trabajando, Groundwork Lawrence, and to each and every one of the directors that currently work for the city, thank you for putting this wonderful event together. We are here to gather information from you. You are the residents of this community. We do not know it all. as government officials. The information that is gathered through you, it's what is actually going to make this neighborhood and this city a better place to live. If you do not provide that, where do we go? You are the pillar to this city. So it is important that you come up with genuine ideas as to what you want to see develop or redevelop in our neighborhoods and how you could utilize it. That's how we will be efficient in what we do. As government officials, we are ready to work, and we have the support necessary to make things happen. But now it's on your plate. Help us make it happen. Thank you very much once again for organizing this today.
Thank you. So I'm Rosemary Monahan with the Environmental Protection Agency, and a number of my colleagues from EPA are here as well. But I'm going to mostly hand this off to our consultants, Alan Steinbeck and Carolyn Dwyer from the Renaissance Planning Group, who are going to give a quick presentation on different strategies that can be used to address the kind of problems that the mayor and the city council president talked about, the vacant lots, the abandoned properties. And then we want to get as quickly as possible into hearing from you. So we've got some ways that we're going to ask questions so we can get input from you so that we can think about what are the next steps that you might want to consider. But first, just 2 words about EPA. EPA has been working with Lawrence for the last year or so under a program called Making a Visible Difference in Communities. And this program tonight is part of a workshop series that EPA puts on. My colleague Jeff Alexander from Washington is part of that office, and these workshops are really intended to be sort of short sessions in which we gather a lot of information from you who live in this neighborhood, and then develop a next steps report that talks about options you might be able to pursue. So it's part of a series. This one's on strategies for addressing vacant lots and other kinds of properties like that, but we have others in the series. And before I hand this off to Alan, I do want to say thanks to all the folks we worked with in Lawrence, but especially Abel Vargas and also Anna Luna from ACT. So they helped plan this whole thing. We really appreciate that. All right, no further ado, let me hand this to Alan Steinbeck.
Thank you, and it's my first time in Lawrence, and I'm so pleased to be here. We're excited about this. Caroline and I will be with you for the next day and a half, working with members of the community, members of the local government, and the people doing economic and community development here in Lawrence. Also working with our partnership of federal agencies, a lot of whom have come and are going to talk with us tomorrow especially. But before I get started, I wanted to let Anna say a few words about what she's doing in the neighborhood, and then I'll get into a little bit of presentation.
Muchas gracias a la comunidad por estar aquí hoy. Yo soy Ana Luna y la directora de ACT Lawrence. Estamos localizados aquí en el 530 de la Broadway. Ustedes que fueron invitados por nosotros, le damos las gracias por estar aquí. Cualquier pregunta, por favor, asegúrense de llamarnos, mantenerse informado aquí en la comunidad. Es importante que ustedes puedan darnos sus ideas, qué necesitan en el área, cómo podemos ayudar, qué ideas necesitamos trabajar con la ciudad para que esas ideas sean completas. So I want to thank everyone here. My name is Ana Luna from ACT Lawrence. We're located at 530 Broadway, and thank you again for coming up and giving us so much support to make this event happen. And please keep informed, stay informed, contact us for any questions you have. And also, please, don't be afraid to give any of your ideas. Every idea is important. And we want to work together with the city and the community, all the city councilors, to make sure your ideas get implemented. Thank you.
So we're here providing this technical assistance, and it is called Planning for Infill Development. And you heard the mayor mention infill and the importance of that in the neighborhood. And so we want to think about and talk about strategies that are going to help make the Arlington neighborhood stable, livable, with quality, affordable housing over the long term. And we want to make it a place where people want to live and stay, and for generations to live and make that their home. It's really a very unique place. We had a chance to tour it this afternoon, and I'll show a couple of pictures from that tour. But we also are providing technical assistance. So we travel around the country on behalf of US EPA. I'm one of US EPA's contractors, and we go and provide this similar technical assistance to other places that are dealing with issues of urban development, revitalization, and how to catalyze investment in their communities. So this technical assistance includes an assessment. We're here listening and learning. We want to talk to you tonight about that and listen to what some of the issues are in the community. We're assessing some of the practices that are being deployed in the neighborhood, and we're convening this discussion here to talk about that. Us being here is an important act, but really you all being together and talking together as in a community is just as important as that, to take the time to come out, and I appreciate everyone doing that tonight. And for those of us who are going to be here tomorrow, I appreciate your time in making this convening successful. We're going to be creating a report that has a next steps action plan. So this is not a big, thick planning document that we're creating. It's an immediate one-year action plan to help the City of Lawrence and ACT work effectively in the community and leverage all of the good work that's already been done and that's going on already. The agenda includes this community meeting tonight. We're talking about goals, preferences, and concerns, so we're listening to what you all are thinking and doing in the neighborhood. We have a work session tomorrow in the morning where we talk about strengths and challenges in the neighborhood, and then a work session in the afternoon where we'll be rolling up our sleeves and putting together that action plan that I was talking about. So EPA has an initiative called Making a Visible Difference, and this is part of that program where EPA wants to have its regions work with communities to see what they can do to help them in various ways through the Brownfields program, through this type of assistance, and through some policy assistance as well. We have some goals specifically identified for Lawrence that I'll show you in just a second, and we're really here trying to help build capacity to help Lawrence take effective next steps. So our goals are several. One is formalize strategy for neighborhood stabilization and using vacant properties. The second is address some code enforcement and absentee landlord issues. 3 is implement a neighborhood identity campaign and strategy to help make the neighborhood feel and be more unique. 4, to coordinate and align nonprofits and non-governmental organizations to work towards common goals and improve their communication. And 5 is align and integrate infill strategies with ongoing brownfields planning and other initiatives already underway. So we have a varied set of goals that we're working on that are policy-oriented and project-oriented as well. This is one of the pictures from our drive-through today. Lawrence is very unique in its historical infrastructure and buildings. All of those really enormous mill buildings along the river are such a unique and wonderful asset that you have, and people are investing in those buildings, building housing, bringing private money to town, and putting money into the community. And that's an important thing that's going on in the larger greater Lawrence. You also have a nice, healthy downtown. You have so many local businesses in this town, and you really don't have a lot of vacant businesses around relative to some other communities. You really have a neighborhood feel and a local feel to your community. But also, we recognize that the neighborhoods of Lawrence are really important, and North Lawrence and the Arlington neighborhood are really the heartbeat of the community. It's where you see people living out their daily lives, and you all doing that here. And you also have and enjoy local businesses in the neighborhood. And I was struck by how many people were out and about today, even on a not very warm afternoon. It was sunny, but people were walking around. This city is alive with people, and it's such a wonderful thing to see that this city is such a lively place. And I was pleased to see kids walking home from school, people walking to and from businesses, and the scale of this neighborhood really helps to make that happen. So you might recognize this fellow, but our focus was really looking at what's happening on the street level. So we're not just talking about what's happening downtown, we're really looking at what's happening in the neighborhood, focusing on issues of housing, quality of housing, affordability, stability of individual streets, and what we can do to make every little street successful as the individual building block of your community. And there's work that's been done at the city level and with ACT to help with the housing market, to help with housing quality, to try to put property into play for new housing to be developed. And there's been some real success here, and I was pleased to see the housing being inhabited. You really don't have a lot of vacant buildings relative to some other communities that are like you. Every neighborhood is alive with people, even if some of the buildings are older and some of them need fixing up. And also we talked about some other quality of life issues like open space, parks and trees and other assets that make neighborhoods function effectively. And so that's one of the things we want to talk about tonight as we listen to you all in just a few minutes about housing issues, about livability, about neighborhood assets, and the Arlington neighborhood's relationship to Greater Lawrence. So I talked about going to some other communities around the country, and we've been to places in Mississippi, Illinois, Washington State, Indiana, New York, Kansas. We're going out to Las Vegas soon. So this technical assistance is being applied in various places around the country. It was built on some work done in Fresno, California. And Fresno is a city in central California in the big agricultural area of California that produces lots of lettuce and strawberries and things that you see come from there, almonds, etc. Fresno was a place that was not heavily resourced. There was not a lot of money in town, and they developed some creative strategies working with EPA to figure out how to do that. So this technical assistance was born from that conversation that they had there. So what is infill development? Infill development is vacant or underutilized land in previously developed areas. So we're trying to figure out how to utilize the land that you have, utilize the infrastructure that you have in terms of housing and commercial development, as opposed to greenfield development, which is something that occurs out of town on undeveloped areas. It's happening all around the country. As we travel around, we're seeing communities fixing up their downtowns. We're seeing a strong shift to localization of economies where more local businesses are opening and they're inhabiting these downtown places. Also, people are moving into in-town neighborhoods, living in fixed-up buildings, living in new buildings that are built to fit in with the pattern and the feel of communities. And these are three examples from around different parts of the country. And also, urban neighborhoods are so important. It's so important that urban neighborhoods are healthy and stable for the overall health of the community because there's so much value. There's value to you who live here and your quality of life, but there's also great value to the community as a whole, as a stable place, and really the reputation of a city within a region has a lot to do with its livability, and these neighborhoods are very important to that. So why is infill important? Well, so many cities across the Northeast and the Midwest have suffered from urban disinvestment, of great shifts in the economy and the job base, and you certainly know that history here. Many neighborhoods and houses have fallen into disrepair, factories have been vacated, and infill development is a response to this in a way to help remedy some of these problems. And there are also shifting preferences in the marketplace. There's a lot of data and information and research about how people prefer to live. And what we're finding is more and more people want to live in cities and towns. They want to live in a place that feels like a place. And they want to have choices in walking, taking transit, and having access to lots of businesses and economic opportunities. So there are many benefits of infill. Infill is good for the environment. It's more efficient to build in places and to revitalize and build in existing communities. It requires less land. It takes advantage of infrastructure you already have. And it makes the fiscal equation for city government easier because the more that's built and the more that's maintained, the better value your community has overall. And the easier it is to have a quality community that's well-resourced and well-funded. It's good for quality of life. Infill development helps with access to jobs and services and employment. It provides better quality housing, new housing and more housing for people. We heard today that there was a great demand for affordable housing in Lawrence. People want to live here, and that's such a wonderful thing to have, is that people want to come and live, and that there's this need and demand for new housing to come. It's also good for the economy. Renovating buildings is something that puts a lot of money into the community. It also brings money into the community from the outside, as well as providing jobs for people who are in the building trades and that sort of thing. But despite this, there are also many challenges. There are market conditions that make it very difficult to do infill development. Sometimes older homes or older buildings need a lot of money put into them to make them fresh again and new again. And sometimes that amount of money is more than that building's actually worth. So sometimes it's difficult to have the right economic mix to have buildings be worth investing in. And when you have that condition, what you need is people working at the community level. You need some support from city government. You need some support from community development organizations, and you need to prime the pump of those kinds of neighborhoods. And fortunately for Lawrence, you have very strong property values and very strong value that's driving some market-based investment. But you also have people working on investment that is that's helped along by city policy and other funds. Infrastructure, too, is a major issue, and one of the things we noted was the streets in Lawrence. They're a little bit bumpy in places around town, and when you start investing in buildings and having more money available in new buildings, it helps to pay for repairs and maintenance of the systems that you already have. And public engagement's really key. One of the major words that's floating around Washington, D.C. among agencies now is the issue of equity and equitable development. And there's been a great shift across the country in the past decades of getting community members more involved in public decisions, of making a place, an environment where people can discuss the issues in their community and come together to influence decision making. And dealing with that issue of equity, having people have quality housing even if they have modest means, is one of the things that we're focusing on in this tool and as we work in communities like yours. So we're going to take a second. That's an overview of infill development, and I wanted to take a second to do a little discussion. We're going to start talking with you, and I want you to engage with us and start talking to us. So we're going to have some feedback here, and we're going to take these blue cards. Caroline's going to help me. We're going to pass out these blue cards. If you could help, too, by just sending them around the room, that would be helpful to us. And what I want you to do is to think about this question. I'm going to get you to write something down on the blue card. The first question is, what and where are your favorite places in Lawrence to take friends or visitors? So if I come into town, where would you send me? Where would you take me? What would you show me in Lawrence? And also, what would you show me in the Arlington neighborhood? What are the special things about the Arlington neighborhood that make it unique and define it? So I want you to think about that for a second. You're going to get a pen if you don't already have one. And I want you to write this down on the card. And we're going to have people share in just a second. And this is going to help us tonight, because what we're going to do tonight is collect these cards. I'm going to get some of you to share with us. But tonight we're going to look at these and we'll put them in perspective in the morning. So this kind of feedback is really helpful to us to hear from you. So is anybody already done? Anybody finished? Anybody finished with your idea? I want you to hold on to it. Anyone done and ready to share with us what you think? Somebody's got to be brave. You want to share?
What, my favorite place?
Yes. You have to share it to the microphone and tell everybody. You want to?
I'm going to write it down, Alan.
You're going to write it down?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Hold on. I'm going to let you speak into the microphone, okay?
I don't think it actually works. Oh.
Yeah.
There.
Talk loudly to the group. The microphone's not.
So, how's everyone doing?
My name's Sebastian Brown with Lawrence Community Works. Do people know, I'm sure a bunch of people know Jose has the urban farm. He has the acre that he's been farming for the last 5 years. And he just kind of worked it out, I guess, with the city is Jose here? No. But it's an awesome little urban farm area that he takes care of and some other members of the community take care of. And it's like beautified, that lot. And I know he gives out vegetables and stuff in the produce to his neighbors. Oh, Jose, ¿cómo está? What's up, man? What's up, man? Jose, everyone knows Jose. So yeah, Jose is awesome. Don Luis. Yeah. Okay.
An exchange
Yes, and after we have this conversation, we're going to be looking at the maps to identify some of these assets that we're talking about. So let's make sure to get that one on the map. Who else wants to share relative to this question? What are your favorite places? You got one over here?
Okay, so it's not in the Arlington neighborhood, but it's
them.
the Lawrence
Tell your
History
neighbors.
Center. The Lawrence History Center is my favorite place when I bring someone to Lawrence. And throughout the years, I have brought people here whenever I meet someone, and this is my home, so I bring them. And one of the interesting things that has happened with that is they sell like Bread and Roses T-shirts there, and my friends have purchased them. And when they go to other cities, I've been shocked to hear back that people recognize Lawrence and they recognize the Bread and Roses march.
Awesome. So. Awesome. Great. Who else? Yes. Who else has an asset to share? Okay. Yes, sure, that's fine.
Uno de los sitios que más me gusta a mí es el Parque de la Web y su vecindario, debido a que tengo ahí un grupo de soccer que juegan los niños. Tengo uno promedio de 20 niños, pequeños y adultos. Por eso es una de las razones por la cual amo esa parte ahí y su vecindario. Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
So just quickly, he identified the West Street Park as his favorite location in the Arlington neighborhood because of the activity, because of the sports league, because of the young kids that utilize that park to play soccer and other sports.
Okay, maybe one or two more. Keeping in mind, we'll have some time to share and look at the maps and identify these places. Anyone else? Okay.
Sí, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Aquilina de la Cruz. Tengo para decirle que una de las partes que más me gusta también es el Parque Rojo, como lo decimos allí, frente a la escuela que queda más allí al lado. Pero hay un problema y yo hablé con el alcalde hace un tiempo y él me prometió y me cumplió que iba a limpiar. Yo le pedí que por favor podían limpiar el parque porque tiene muchos cristales, los rompen de noche, fuman mucha droga en ese parque, ya no podemos ir con los niños. Ahora mismo, en esta semana yo fui, ya que la nieve se había ido y eso está horrible, pero el alcalde sí dijo que lo limpió y es cierto, lo limpió. También que si podrían volver a limpiarlo, pero yo creo que nada más si ponen ahí un puesto de una radiopatrulla de policía, después de las 6 de la noche hasta cierta hora, es la única manera, por eso está horrible. Y todos esos vecindarios que hay ahí, tú sales a buscar una casa alquilada y es una fumadora de droga y horrible lo que hay. Y también tenemos aquí en la Alde y la Willow. Esa calle le están dando muy fuerte la droga. O sea, ya ni esas casas sirven para uno. Yo la viví ahí y me fui por la droga. Demasiado. Te sale la peste, te llega a tu cocina de tu casa. Es horrible. También tengo para decirle algo aquí en la escuela. Yo tengo una niña aquí en la escuela. No sé si está en sus manos, pero por un lado podría no empezar. Ayudarnos a arreglar los aire acondicionados de la escuela. Porque si no... eso pasa, nuestros niños no podrán estudiar. El calor es horrible ahorita en el verano. Nada más hay que venir desde las 9 de la mañana. Esos aires que hay no dan para combatir ese calor que hay. Los niños no llegan apetosos a la casa. Porque yo soy testigo, yo tengo una niña aquí, que eso no es justo. Hasta los mismos maestros le sudan su camisa y no importa que yo lo diga porque es cierto, porque yo lo he sufrido y yo no trabajo aquí, pero me mantengo siempre un poco aquí adentro. Sí, creo que si podrían ayudarnos en eso, se lo agradecería. Gracias.
Gracias. And by the way, my Spanish is terrible, okay? But Caroline is listening on our behalf, okay? So she's getting the English translation to everything you say, and we're going to work together tonight to work on the issue, okay?
Thank
You
Should I translate that? Or?
yeah, just a basic.
So I think she referred to the Cronin Park, which is right across the street from the tar box. I think that's the park that she had mentioned as her favorite spot. She did mention that there's been some trash and some illegal dumping in the area, and one of the things that she asked, and actually the mayor was able to do, was clean up the park. But she asked that the mayor go again and make sure it gets cleaned up again because it's starting to get trashed again. But she has some other comments about the condition and some of the activity happening in the neighborhoods, drug activity in particular that's affecting some of the streets in the neighborhood, and she'd wish that someone would be a little bit more active, making sure that activity subsides or just doesn't exist at all. And then the last point that she made was more along the lines of what happens here in the school, more specifically associated with the air conditioning and the temperature of the school. She'd wish someone would come in here and help out rehabilitating or fixing the AC system so that the kids could have classroom time in a more comfortable setting.
Okay. Great, and thank you. All right, maybe one more before we move on to the next question.
Thank you. Dios lo bendiga, mi gente. Mi nombre es Frankie Caraballo.
They're
Yeah.
not hearing you through the mic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mi nombre es Frankie Caraballo. Fui adicto por 25 años. Loren es bueno. Créeme, Loren es bueno y se puede hacer la diferencia. Nosotros los latinos algunas veces no queremos compartir en estas reuniones y todo el mundo sabe eso. Pero somos un pueblo que somos agradecidos, que cuando suceden cosas somos agradecidos. Yo le pido a ustedes que haga poca gente. Loren necesita esto. Loren necesita un cambio. Loren necesita la ayuda de ustedes. La alcaldía no lo puede hacer solo. Es triste porque son como 20 o 30 gente que trabaja en la alcaldía para casi 10,000 gente. Tenemos que trabajar en unión. Como latinos, como seres humanos, olvidando la diferencia y trabajar en unión. Porque si no trabajamos en unión, estos niños que están aquí van a vivir lo peor. Y yo, como es adicto a droga, no me gustaría que estos niños llegaran a la adicción de droga. Entonces vamos a dejar el ego y vamos a trabajar en unión como gente civilizada. Thank you.
Thank you. And you've raised some very great concerns, and the coming together is very important. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about how the city, community members, and community organizations can work better together to create the stability, the quality of life, and make this a livable place for everyone. We're very much going to be focused in on that tomorrow. Yes.
So the gentleman's comments was, as a person that has suffered from substance abuse, recognizing that there are great things, positive things happening in the city, and that oftentimes the Latino community doesn't engage in these types of conversations, but there's an opportunity and something that the Latino community should participate in, unite, come together, and try to find solutions as a city and not operate in silos.
And I want to be clear, we're trying to focus on the positive tonight. We know there are many challenges in the community. We're trying to focus on the positive and infill development in particular and community investment, because community investment has so many benefits, primary benefits, secondary benefits, providing jobs, housing, and we feel it's very important to really focus in on a community and to how to make that happen, because it's going to address some of the larger and more difficult issues that exist here. We do recognize that they exist, but we will be talking about how to get investment into the community tonight and tomorrow. So I want to move on to the next question, which is we've now talked about a couple of assets. We've put a couple of issues, community issues on the table. I want you to think about your ideal neighborhood, the ideal Arlington neighborhood, and what you might want to have there that you don't have. What does it include? What is it you want to see there that you don't have? This is a big question. I know you've probably been asked this question before, and I know there may be some hot button issues here that may get floated tonight. But it's important for us to hear where you're coming from on this topic. So I want you to flip that blue card over that you have. We're going to collect these from you at the end of the meeting. And I want, on the blank side of the blue card, if you'll address this question number 2, what is the ideal neighborhood? What does it include? Think about your vision for Arlington and what you want it to be. We're going to. You can write in English or Spanish. Also, if you don't want to share your idea on the paper, you can tell it to us and we will write it up on the board, okay? So anyone right away have an idea, want to share with us this? The ideal neighborhood. Think about Arlington. What's the dream? Who wants to share?
Automáticamente, mi nombre es Fausto Núñez, presidente de Lana Association, de la parte norte, a donde estamos ahora mismo. Los cambios que hemos tenido son muy buenos en esta parte últimamente. Número 1, hemos bajado la criminalidad, que es una de las partes importantes, trabajando en conjunto con la alcaldía, la policía y, número 1, la comunidad. Es decir, que lo único que pediría es que seguir el mismo trabajo que estamos haciendo, unido todo mano a mano, y eso es lo que da el cambio. Gracias.
Thank you. And the message was about some of the positive change that's been happening in the community. People working, crime reducing, people being more involved, and some of the things that have been the good news. And you very much want that to continue and the work to continue to make that happen. And I wanted to make the point in response to that this is a long process. Neighborhood change and change in cities is a very slow and long process. It takes time for places to evolve. It took a lot of time for Lawrence to become the way that it is now. And it's going to take a long time, and it's almost a never-ending project to continue to reinvest, to build, to work together, to make positive change in the community. And it takes some patience. Sometimes results take a long time to manifest themselves, and you have to be in it for the long haul, and you have to put your heart into it a little bit when you do this. Who else wants to address the question number 2? Describe the ideal neighborhood. What does it include? What's something you would like to see in your community? Maybe some of our younger audience members or anyone who want to share? Yes. Yeah, talk to the people.
Okay. Hello, I'm Lara Valdez. So my main thing is education here. I have a very young boy, he's 7. I'm a very young mother, and all I care about really is education, because I could stick my son in his room and keep him away from the violence and just limit him to everything that's out there, or at least try my best. Right now, I was actually looking to move to Westford because of the education. I don't know if it's just the standards here are a little different, but you can tell that right now here the schools are like 3 out of 10, where in even surrounding areas like Methuen, Chelmsford, it's like an 8 out of 10 for the education. So I'm hoping that something changes there. The MCAS scores, they're raising, but they're not as high as I would like to see them. I know that the charter schools, they're very limited with the intake on their kids. The the wait list is like 2 years for the charter schools. So if they can help maybe bring up another charter school, I think that that would be helpful. Maybe some childcare centers, something for, I'm all about the kids, I'm sorry. So something like a Chuck E. Cheese or something where the kids could, like a recreational program where the kids could hang out, they don't have to be signed up, something that could even be a one day out of the week thing, something where kids can be free, they can share with their friends or meet new people, have positive energy around them. Because right now, I mean, I see my son, he's in a bunch of programs and there's a lot of kids around him that I don't want. And it's sad because I don't want them to influence him in a negative way, so I take him out of the programs. So somewhere where they're watched and those bad things are limited, where I could feel okay to leave him wherever he, in that program. So that's my main thing. I see that there's a lot of change. I see there's less violence. I live here in probably the worst part of the neighborhood. So I have seen a lot of changes and I appreciate it. So I think that we should mainly focus right now on the education because that's our future right now. And here you go.
So I can hear that you care about this place and like this place. So what's keeping you here? What's the specialness of it?
You want to know what's keeping me here? I'm not going to lie. It is very expensive to move to Westford.
Yeah.
It's almost double the rent.
Right.
But honestly, I mean, if I can stay here, I grew up here, I'm fine. I have 4 siblings. They all grew up just fine. I have nephews, they're great kids. This is one of the smartest kids in this school. So I think that kids could be good here. I just think that we need support, and I think we need to concentrate on our children. I think that's the main thing. That's the main priority.
Thank you. And we heard about the neighborhood. A lot of young parents with young children live here because it is affordable, and we see children all over. When we drive around, when we walk around, the neighborhood is filled with children. And a lot of urban neighborhoods don't really have that kind of environment. They don't have that kind of family feel to them, and this place has that. Children are a big asset to here, and they really flavor the perception and the life of the neighborhood. Who else wants to share? Okay.
Es algo muy importante, yo me crié en la calle, como dice la joven, yo me crié aquí también en Lawrence. Yo hablo inglés, pero prefiero hablar mejor español, se me hace más fácil. El problema de nosotros, diferencia Andover, Metuen, es que cuando vemos la situación en la calle, problemas, gente vendiendo droga, gente haciendo barbería, lo quedamos callados. Y al quedarnos callados, sucede lo que sucede. ¿Entiendes? Tenemos miedo de llamar a la policía. Si usted coge su teléfono y usted llama a la policía, nadie lo está viendo. Entonces tenemos que pegar a trabajar en unión. Porque ya yo tengo 44 años. Yo sé dónde yo estoy parado hoy en día. Ya yo pasé lo que tenía que pasar. Pero estos niños no saben. Y es como dice la joven, hay sitios que no sirven para los niños. Y si nosotros no nos ponemos en la brecha de ayudar al gobierno, esto va a seguir peor. Entonces tenemos que levantar la cabeza y depender de nuestros hijos. Y eso es lo que nosotros tenemos que hacer. Y no solamente nosotros, sino también inyectar esa cosa positiva a los vecindarios. Y empezar, y usted va a ver la diferencia, todo cambia. Ya no es malicia como antes, créame. Yo me paso las 24 horas en la calle. No hay como antes. Ya a las 6 de la tarde, ya usted no ve a nadie en la calle buscando droga o asaltando. Eso lo sé yo porque de eso vivo yo. Ahí yo me paso con mi gente siempre. Pero por la mañana hay muchos accidentes, y nosotros lo vemos. Nosotros no somos ciegos. nosotros vemos las situaciones, nosotros vemos los carros pasando, vendiendo droga. Usted puede coger la tablilla, dárselo a la policía, ya usted hizo su trabajo. Vamos a parar de miedo, porque créeme, yo me crié en la calle, aquí la gente habla y no hacen nada. La mayoría de muertes que ha habido aquí es por cobardía. No ha sido como Colombia, Puerto Rico, que son gente criminales que nacen para eso. Aquí no. Aquí la muerte que han sucedido ha sido por bobería, cosa que no tiene sentido. Créamelo. Aquí hay gente que han echado a otra gente, le han llamado a la policía y están haciendo vida y caminan lo más bien por ahí. Y nadie le hace nada. Entonces dejemos la cobardía y vamos a empezar a trabajar por este pueblo. Vamos a ayudar a la policía, vamos a ayudar a la alcaldía. Y usted va a ver la diferencia. Thank you.
Thank you. And the gist of the comment was about crime in the neighborhood, being brave in the face of some of the difficulties of how crime presents itself, having a good relationship with the police department, making sure that you feel comfortable calling them, but everyone sort of banding together and being community-minded in trying to address this problem of crime. We do know that's going on, especially in spots, but I don't get the sense when I'm in the neighborhood that crime is the defining thing. I know it's an issue and it's an underlying issue of the community, but this neighborhood is not. It's capable of transcending that and overcoming that in a way that a lot of neighborhoods have more difficulty doing. So I do encourage you to continue to work together to make the neighborhood and streets safe. One of the best ways to do that is to have a populated neighborhood, people on the street, an active, lively neighborhood with businesses, and a neighborhood that's fully alive and where the public spaces and the streets are owned by the people who live there and who value that place. And so that's going to be one of the themes of what we talk about tomorrow. So maybe one more person? I'm going to have you and then yes.
One of the things that I wanted to share that I think regarding education, that I think it's really important also to say that there has been good changes. An example is this school. It went to level 1, which is a big thing, all the way from level 4, we're at level 1. So good changes are happening in the community of the Arlington, so those are good things to also be grateful for. So.
Thank you.
Gracias. Mi nombre es Luis Grullón. Vivo en el 52 de la calle Walno, en la ciudad de Lawrence. Vivo en esta ciudad por un espacio de 46 años. Vine medio joven. Gracias le doy a todas las personas que me conocen, a los que me apoyan, a las personas que se han mantenido positivos en este pueblo, no solamente mirando las cosas negativas. Y al mismo tiempo, vuelvo a invitarle a recordarle que nadie ha hablado de eso, es lo que le llamamos junta de vecinos, que no se están haciendo últimamente. ¿Por qué? Porque no hemos puesto negativo en una mayoría. Yo pensaba, perdonándome, no lo presente a los que no están, que iba a haber más gente aquí hoy. Pensaba yo, porque nos corresponde a todos nos corresponde, todas las personas que vivimos en esta área del Arlington, hacer el esfuerzo, trabajar hombro con hombro y no solamente andar criticando lo malo que hacen los otros. Lo que debemos hacer es luchar por las cosas buenas y tratar de conocernos, conocer al vecino. Y si usted no conoce al vecino, busque a alguien que lo conozca, invítelo a su casa y hablen de lo que está sucediendo al frente. Y no le dejen todo a un señor que está sentado en una oficina por ahí, con miles de cosas en la mente que tiene que resolver, porque él es como si fuera Satanás, todo el mundo le echa la culpa. Echémonos culpa a nosotros también, que muchas veces somos haraganes, muchas veces somos vagos, muchas veces pensamos que si hacemos algo queremos que nos tiren una foto de una vez y que nos pongan en una pantalla y nos miren como héroes. No es así. El que cree que hablando se va a ganar la gloria, se equivocó. Hay que trabajar con esto, con la mano, y hay que tener buen corazón y amar a la gente y acercarse un poco a Dios. Es todo. Gracias.
El nombre mío es José Cora. Yo vivo en el 73 de La Mero, donde actualmente el señor Luis Grullón y yo tenemos un pedazo de terreno allí que es de la ciudad, pero nosotros estamos y lo tenemos en buenas condiciones, ese terreno. Enfrente de mi casa y en el vecindario, como todo el mundo sabe, pues se vende droga en todos lados. Al frente de mi casa iban y se paraban y esperaban a los vendedores de droga allí en mi casa. Yo me asomaba por la ventana, los veía, yo bajaba, le tocaba en el cristal y le decía, si tú no te vas de aquí, yo te llamo a la policía. Rapidito se iban. Si yo no llego a hacer eso, que me pongo guapo con la gente, no porque soy guapo, ni tampoco quiero ser más que nadie, pero si yo vivo ahí y viene una persona aquí a frente a mi casa a vender o a esperar a alguien para comprar droga, yo simplemente bajo y se lo digo. A mí no me importa lo que tú hagas, hazlo en otro lado, pero aquí no. Aquí tú te vas o te llamo a la policía. Las personas se van por cuando le mientan a la policía. Porque yo no voy a permitir frente a mi casa, donde yo tengo 2 nietas, está mi esposa, está mi hijo, está la esposa de mi hijo, que nadie venga a vandalizar el sitio. Si se para alguien allí, en el sitio que el señor Luis Grullón y yo atendemos ahora mismo, se mete alguien al parking, yo lo saco de allí, porque nosotros hemos trabajado para eso y estamos trabajando para el pueblo de Lawrence. Si viene de gente, eran gente mayormente de New Hampshire, venían hasta gente de Maine a comprar droga, a esperar allí. Se paró un taxi una vez con un tipo allí y yo le dije que si ese era el espacio donde él se parqueaba, él me dijo, yo tengo mi permiso y yo me puedo parquear donde yo quiera. Yo le dije, bueno, veremos a ver si yo voy a esperar un ratito más y si tú no te vas, yo te llamo a la policía. Le dije al taxista. Se quedó un ratito, al ratito se fue. Me dice, me voy, pero no es porque le tengo miedo a la policía. Yo me le fui detrás de él porque estaba hablando muchas cosas ya que no valían la pena, pero él se fue. Y así mismo, si todos nosotros colaboramos frente a la casa donde nosotros vivimos, la gente no van a ir, no van. Pero si nosotros los miramos de la ventana y los dejamos a vendan droga, usen droga, se va la ciudad a pique como nosotros decimos. Esas son las palabras mías, no sé si están de acuerdo con lo que ustedes piensan, pero ese es mi pensamiento. Gracias.
Thank you. And those comments were about some crime in front of your house and drug selling in front of his house, and him confronting people who were doing that and trying to deal with that problem at his piece of property, and calling on other neighbors to do similar things to try to combat what's happening, including a mention of people coming in from out of state, not just to sell drugs, but to buy drugs in your neighborhood, which is crazy. It's not uncommon for people to come into a neighborhood to sell, but having others come here because they know they can get it is something that is an unusual problem to have, and something that I'm sure as there's some attention being put on that, but more can be done. And you do need to take ownership at the community level, and you need to take ownership of your front door and your street, and everyone needs to do that. The previous comments were about coming together as a community and getting to know each other, having more conversation together, respecting each other, loving each other, working together to improve the neighborhood, and having neighborhood members participate in the neighborhood improvement process, and not just always being negative and criticizing what others are doing, but becoming more active in the process, becoming more hands-on, getting involved, and putting some sweat equity into the neighborhood is really important values to have. And I'm pleased to hear you say that, because I see neighborhoods who are successful at revitalization, and the community members are involved in what's going on. They're involved in the community development organizations. They're involved in activism at City Hall. They are involved in wealth building in the community. They're thinking creatively about how to do this. They're taking ownership of their streets. They're collaborating and working with each other, and they're thinking outside of themselves as they do this. And the communities that do that are the ones that are successful in addressing some very challenging problems. So your philosophy is one that I've seen work in other places. Yes.
The other challenge that we have is that we need a cleaner city. And for that, we definitely need the collaboration of everyone. And I really invite, everyone to work together, but also City Hall to enforce, higher standards, because definitely that's the comment that we hear from people coming by, or even the residents of Lawrence, that we need cleaner streets, a cleaner city.
Right. I'm far.
Thank you, and that is one of our goals, our stated goals, to work on issues of code enforcement and attractiveness and upkeep. Yes, maybe I'll get to you, sir. I'm going to take her, and then we'll get to you. We'll have these two more, and then we'll move on in the presentation.
I just have a quick question regarding what this young lady said about the cleaner streets, because it's throughout the whole city. And our question is, because we have a very strong neighborhood association, is why can't landlords be held accountable for cleaning the properties that they own? Because in most cases, I think it's landlords that are absentee. They don't live in the location, if I'm not mistaken, even businesses. And I think that there should be some type of penalty imposed upon them, if it could be done, I don't know if it can, to make sure that they do keep their homes and their businesses clean, sweep the streets, pick up the litter, do something. I mean, even tonight walking in here, I know the kids just got out of school and it's a mess, but it should be picked up. So I have to agree with you. And it's throughout the city. I think it's a concern from all different neighborhoods in the city.
Thank you. And I think the upkeep of private property is a separate set of issues from the upkeep of the street. And there is a litter problem, but it's such a constant issue, and it's a thing that people have to learn not to do. Right. I mean, the best way to keep litter off the street is to not litter, as one good solution. But barring being able to address it that way, a lot of cities have various ways of cleaning up that aren't strict functions of city government, because it's really expensive to put people out on the street, and it's a big resource issue. And there are creative ways to do that, and we'll discuss some of that tomorrow. On the upkeep of private property, actually, one thing we noticed is there's a lot of older structures here, a lot of older homes, but your building stock is actually in pretty good shape, and it's been kept up pretty well. And I go to places like Appalachia and Mississippi and Alabama, and some of those towns just are really distressed in terms of their built environment and just really tough. Here, your buildings are intact. They may need some maintenance, but they've been maintained well enough to stand up and be useful and lived in. And yes, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but you're not in dire straits in terms of the quality of your building stock. And that was one positive thing you have going for you, actually. You may not see it because you live here and you see it every day, but I could take you to some places where you'd be amazed at how difficult some of the neighborhoods are in terms of building quality and things falling apart. And you've seen it around New England. There, you know places where that's happened. Okay.
Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es José Luis.
Yes.
Okay. Mi nombre es José Luis González. Vivo aquí cerca en la Arlington, a una esquina. Y De las cosas que nos afectan más es ver la seguridad en nuestro pueblo. Muchos han hablado ya de esto, pero no está de más volver a hablarlo. Y ver que, por ejemplo, en nuestra comunidad, algunas personas, por lo menos a mí me da mucha pena ver que personas, por ejemplo, que viven en otras ciudades cerca, por no mencionar algunas, dicen, yo no puedo vivir en Lawrence, me da pena vivir en Lawrence por la inseguridad y la droga que se vende en la calle. Y esto me apena porque vivo aquí, mis hijos viven aquí, todos vivimos aquí, ¿verdad? Yo creo que uno de los puntos más fuertes que debemos trabajar es la seguridad en las calles, en las escuelas. Si, por ejemplo, mis hijos que estuvieron aquí en la escuela, el otro día un señor daba vuelta por aquí, por la escuela. Y mi esposa dice, pero yo lo veo que baja y sube, pero yo no veo a nadie por ahí tanto tiempo. Solamente la seguridad en la escuela está en las entradas o está también en las puertas laterales, porque todo lo que tiene que ver con la escuela y los vecindarios deben ser vigilados, porque nada más no pasan cosas en el frente o en un aula, pueden pasar alrededor. Y así en la ciudad, yo creo que debemos enfocarnos mucho en la seguridad de nuestra comunidad. Y otro punto, no sé si creo que hablaron al principio, es sobre la renta. Aquí se hacen muchos edificios, grandes edificios, y sin embargo las rentas nunca bajan. Aquí todos pagamos de 1,000 y pico en adelante, en un tercer y un cuarto piso y un segundo piso. Entonces, ¿qué solución nos ofrecen para lo que estamos pagando 1,000, 1,200, 1,300 en apartamentos, muchos viejos, algunos buenos? ¿Qué soluciones nos van a dar las autoridades que siempre están eligiéndose y que votamos por ellos? ¿Qué nos ofrecen ellos a nosotros como ciudadanos? Por favor, enfoquémonos en estas áreas de la educación, la seguridad y la renta que tanto nos afectan. Gracias y buenas noches.
Thank you. And he reiterated comments about crime and safety and the presence of drugs as well, but also safety around the schools and the neighborhood immediately surrounding the school, with concerns about kids' safety and what happens in the immediate area of the school, as well as comments about the rents and the cost of living here is seemingly high relative to what you would expect or want to pay in this area. And I would say relative to the rents, we did kind of feel like the rents were a little high, and there's some reasons for that. It costs a lot of money to rehab and maintain property, for one, but you also live in a very dynamic region in the greater Boston area, and this is an expensive place to be. This part of the country is not cheap. So if you can get on a train in 45 minutes and be in Boston, or drive down there and commute there to work, you're going to have some of that effect in this community. Even though your life may be centered here, that greater region is going to affect the cost of living here. And there's not a whole lot a city can do about that, but there are a lot of programs that can deal with affordable housing, providing affordable housing through policy, through different types of investment and different ways of building it. And that's another thing that's part of the discussion tomorrow, is to talk about affordable housing policy and practices and how to address that market price, which is relatively high, and perhaps make available more units that are more affordable. Also, another issue relative to housing is having housing be a wealth building practice in the neighborhood, where more people can move to home ownership in the Arlington neighborhood, and also have more local landlords and people who can invest in real estate, who tend to have better values in terms of providing lower cost housing to their neighbors versus outside landlords who sometimes want to charge as much as they can. And there's some benefits to doing that. Maybe one more and then we have to move on. Or we could just move on. Let's do that. Okay. So you all, we had asked the question, describe the ideal neighborhood, and you didn't really follow directions. But that's not unusual. But what I'm hearing is through some of the commentary is the ideal neighborhood is one where people know each other, respect each other, work together to improve the place. One that's well kept up, that has a quality appearance, that's affordable, that's livable, that's safe, that's free of drugs, that has quality schools, that's welcoming for families. And all of these things are what I'm really hearing you say. I'm translating these comments and some of these concerns into what I think is seems like a coherent vision for this. And you've got to have that. You've got to have that kind of mindset. Like instead of trying to solve all of the symptoms of some of the problems here, you have to address the community and create things that are new, things that have their own positive energy, and things that you can build on. And so we'll be talking about that for the next day here.
They're just overachievers, Alan.
Oh.
They're skip to that pink card.
The pink card. So, yeah. So, in light of what we've been hearing, I want to ask, what change would have the most positive effect on your neighborhood? So think about these things and some of these challenges that have been put on the table. What one change would have the most positive effect on your neighborhood? Yes, what one change would have the most positive effect on your neighborhood? If you could change one thing about Arlington, what would that be? I want to challenge you to live outside of yourself and live outside of some of the comments and issues and challenges, and think about this. And we're going to do this one a little differently. I want you just to say this one thing, and I'm going to repeat it out. So we're going to do this quickly, and please just share your thought, the little snippet of thought. Who can do that? Anyone who's ready? What one thing would you change?
People respecting others.
People respecting others. Yeah. Okay. Who else? What one thing would you change?
I feel like I want to say it, but I don't want to. It would be lower the rent.
Lower the rents.
Because I think if people now have more disposable income to save for emergencies, then they're not living paycheck to paycheck. And they can invest their money back into the community, and that's going to create that cycle of reinvestment back into the community.
Okay, so lowering the rents, having people have more disposable income to invest in other things and to build wealth. Okay, who else? Remember, you don't have the microphone. I'm going to have to repeat. So what's the one thing you would change?
When we have some car property in the city, look like terrible condition. Don't look like people living there. I know some property, I don't want to say the other, but everybody knows which one it is. It's terrible. I mean, look in that property for over 30 years. The same people, same condition, everything looks like dry, you know. I don't know what happens with some inspector, they don't look it up or what's going on with the stay over there, the windows,
right.
the side, the wall, the front, you know, a lot of people sit down over there. That's for a long, long time.
Okay.
And nobody care about that. That's the only one I have seen in the whole neighborhood.
Okay.
No change for over 30 years.
Yeah, so there's one property in the neighborhood that you don't want to point out, but it's been there for 30 years. It's been a problem for a very long time. You would want to change that. Yeah, so, yeah, we don't want that. Sometimes you just got to roll the dice, you know? But, yeah, but, yeah, we'll talk about that on the map. We're about to talk about the map, so maybe in sort of semi-private, you could show me where that is, okay? And we can talk about it in just a minute, okay? All right. I won't tell anybody where I heard about it. Okay. All right. Okay.
I can't let my friend, you know what I mean?
Right.
But I don't know. We have a property, clean neighborhood, you know. A one building, change everything. Like a one apple,
Yes.
damage.
One bad apple. Yes. That's right.
I hope someday, sometime, somebody look at that and see it's possible take care of that, you know.
Okay.
Because that's the only thing that me crazy to say, why not? Why,
Yes.
No inspector, nobody. That's I don't know.
Well, there's more than one place like that. And so when we yeah, so when we get to the maps, I want you all, we're going to talk about assets, but I want to talk about the bad apples that you refer to, and we'll do that in just a minute. So one more thing, and then we have to.
Then there is a couple of abandoned property.
Yes.
The owner disappeared. I spoke to the city council the other day. He said, we tried, but we don't find a owner. We don't be able to touch that because they complain. We can be in trouble if we try to. Have to find out because if you can, at the closest street, you see something terrible. It's not right. If everybody have a tile painting and clean from, you know,
Right.
as a property like that, kill the neighborhood.
Right. So one thing if you all tell us about those places tonight, those places that just kind of bother you, and they may be very specific, we can point them out. If you'll tell us about them, one of the things we're going to do tomorrow is talk about what we can do about it. And think of them more as opportunities, right? What can actually happen here? And there's a lot of effort already being put into that. But as we talk with the city and some other people who are going to be here in the room tomorrow, we'll be thinking very creatively about how to address some of the challenged properties in the neighborhood, okay? So one more thing, what would be the one thing you would change? We heard about people's attitude and respect, certain properties in the neighborhood. What else? One more comment and then we'll move on. Change the whole what? The home ownership rate. Yes. Right. Yes, so the comment was about increasing the home ownership rate, which currently is around 26%. And yes, that's very low. A lot of neighborhoods are like that and have similar kinds of percentages, but you really should strive to be above 50% for a stable neighborhood. So there's some policy approaches to that we'll discuss, and that's something we're working on in this technical assistance. Okay, we're gonna move on. We have several maps on the table. We're calling them opportunity sites, and what I want you to do is find a map. Everyone who has a map in front of you, please raise your hand. Okay, there's one right here, one in the back, one right here, and is there one on the side? Over there? Okay, so we have 3 maps. We're gonna go to the maps. We're gonna find these sites, and we're going to use the dots to identify them and make sure that we know what they are and have a name on the map for them. And so tomorrow, this is the last thing we're going to do tonight. So we're going to spend just a bit of time to do this. And tomorrow we're going to take these maps back out and start talking about the neighborhood as a physical place, talk about all these opportunities, try to put them all into perspective, and think about some strategies to take advantage of the opportunities and address some of the more challenged properties that are in the neighborhood. So these are physical places, and remember, we're not talking about the stuff that happens in the neighborhood. We're not talking about necessarily crime or the economy or anything like that. We're talking about physical places, buildings, streets, and the place of Arlington neighborhood. Okay? So everybody find your way to one of these maps, if you would. And we'll have some people there to help facilitate the discussion. And we
Yeah, anywhere you want.
let's do that.
I'm gonna collect these cards.
And while we're doing that, we need the blue and pink cards. So everyone, please don't take those cards home with you. We want to read them. We're going to wrap up the conversation here. I appreciate you staying this late and staying to talk about these physical places in the neighborhood. But I want to let everyone have a chance to go home and have some dinner and just hang out and be quiet or whatever you want to do. But I want to take a second to just have each table talk about what was heard and what was discussed and the basic points. So I'm going to start and demonstrate how this goes. But I just wanted to summarize because you probably talked about something different over there than we talked about over here. So we talked about a couple of properties on Myrtle Street, some specific places that we're going to go look at, some distressed properties that need some attention, also one on Park Street as well. So we know there's some isolated small properties that are problems in the neighborhood. And I want to go check those out and see what they are and talk about them tomorrow. And I'll mention again, we're going to roll these maps out tomorrow and talk about them. Another thing we heard about was the number of nightclubs in the neighborhood, that there may be too many nightclubs, too much night activity, too much activity at night in the neighborhoods and the neighborhood streets in terms of noise and partying and sort of some disruptive things that can be not so pleasant for the neighbors. And also some of the challenges in addressing those noise concerns and things in the neighborhood. That there's maybe a lack of resources to always deal with that. Then we also talked about community of specific crime locations. And one of the things I started thinking about was community participation in locating points of crime that maybe you're not always calling the police, but there's some way to record where the problem places are, because you know them in your neighborhood, but the police officer might not always know because they're not always on your street corner. So I'm going to think about a way to maybe document what's going on better so that from a physical point of view, people can look at what's happening and maybe even leverage some of the other crime statistics that are in the city and the records that they keep. So those were the three big ones. Also asked about the farm. We have our urban farmer here who was telling us about that. So we're going to go check that out. And we do a lot of work with urban farming and local food economies and things like that. So that's something I'll try to bring up and learn more about tomorrow. So do you all want to go? And you need a microphone. We need a volunteer for each group, or I will.
Yeah. You're gonna volunteer me.
Okay.
Yeah. We talked about the parks in the area, how to improve them. Just for everybody can enjoy the parks. You guys can help me out here. Yeah, because for the parks, like improve lighting and benches. So we got a wealth of parks in the area, so those could be improved. What else?
The maintenance.
Yeah, the maintenance of them. In respect to on Broadway, there's the old Polytech factory. Well, it's still maybe being utilized, but to bring in businesses, how do you attract them? for maybe medium size or just bring businesses to the area. For the ones that have moved out, maybe attract them back. Also, affordable like ownership for folks that want to stay in Lawrence and maybe they're looking for a property that they want to purchase. Like, how do you create affordable home ownership in the area? Which was that one? Oh yeah. One example too. This very school here, the Arlington School, to improve traffic, the calming of the traffic, maybe traffic signal lights, better safety for maybe our kids when they're going to cross, to improve that more, and lighting as well. On the Lawrence Street area, what do we write here? Okay, yeah. Establish some type of consistent standard for the businesses to be kind of in compliant or maybe like be uniform, to attract, improve maybe the flow of that. And then, and we also want to keep our cultural identity, in the neighborhood. I mean, we don't want to lose it while we improve things, but to make things, better. I mean, that's pretty much it. Did we forget anything? No. We good?
And I think I just want one point of privilege is that the cultural identity issue is a big one. That when people look back at this neighborhood in 100 years, and it's still there, the history of the people who came here, who developed their lives here, who came from distinct places on this planet and had brought their own culture and ideas with them, will be remembered. And it's worth preserving that heritage and that history, and for people to never forget what this neighborhood service was at this point in time in the history of the city. So for no other reason, this is a great reason to preserve and make this neighborhood stable for the long term. Okay, so last group, a volunteer to talk. Somebody volunteer like? No, that's a no. Jeff?
Well, one of my reflections from sitting in on this conversation was that it seems like sometimes that people think that, perhaps the problem is absolutely everywhere, but when we actually put our heads together and say, here are our priorities, here are the places that we really want to concentrate on, we realize that, maybe it's just 10 places, which is nothing. That's certainly a reasonable amount, but, it's certainly less than, what I previously thought. And so it seems that like when people were coming together, it was really helpful in providing clarity of saying, what are our tangible next steps that we can make that will make a positive difference, in this infill neighborhood. Any additions?
Any specific comments about specific places or?
We talked about the burnt buildings, the burnt out buildings, as well as the vacant lots that we saw today. What else?
Northern Hampshire was one of them.
Oh, there was an area that nobody knows who the owners are, so it's just figuring out ownership and who should be responsible for maintaining that property. But we came up with specific addresses to the properties.
Good. Great. All right, so that concludes the meeting. Thank you so much for your time and for coming out tonight. I'm so glad you came to talk to us, and I had a great time meeting you and talking to you. We'll be starting tomorrow. We'll have an all-day session working with some of the people who are the doers within city government, within your community development organizations and others and community members are also welcome to come. It starts at 9. We're going to go till 12 and have one session in the morning where we learn about a few things that can be done in the neighborhood, and we'll look at the maps again and talk about policies, projects, investments, and programs that can work in the neighborhood. And then in the afternoon, we will be discussing some best practices from other places. We'll be building the action plan, and we'll be talking about things that actual individual people or organizations are going to do to try to respond to some of the comments and ideas that have come out of this technical assistance. It's at Heritage State Park and 1 Jackson Street. Okay, thank you and good night.